Well, good morning, everybody. Top of the morning to you. As the choir has aptly and duly informed you, I am Jimmy Lakey, and a pleasure to be here for a little episode of the daily update that we call Lakey Unleashed. I'm unleashed from the confines of corporate radio, unleashed from the bonds of anybody yelling at me for don't say this or don't say that. We're on the wild, wild web, the World Wide Web, the Wild, Wild West, and the Wild, Wild Web. So it's all a combination, and it's the Lakey Unleashed daily update. The good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. We gather here every morning, Monday through Friday, from about 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, about an hour or so. Usually I yap a little bit longer than that, but it's always good to have you here on the show. And thanks for tuning in. Hope you'll spread the word if you're out there watching. Share it, tell your friends, turn it up at the cubicle, offend the whole office, and it'll be really, really good. Don't use many bad words on the program, so it won't be offensive that way. But, some people still have that Trump derangement syndrome. Some people still have that Elon Musk derangement syndrome. It's just amazing to watch this thing. I tweeted this out there last night on the X. I said, I really hope. Every day they've got old Skeletor Maxine Waters out there doing her thing, yapping about Elon Musk, and they've got Chuck Schumer out there. Have the Democrats not figured out that a new day has risen in America? And that maybe old Maxine Waters and Chuck Schumer are not the best face for the Democrat Party, I'm thinking. In Republicans, on the other hand, you have Carolyn Levitt coming out of the White House. She's 20-something years old, and you've got these new young faces and kind of a new generation. A serious question for you. Do the Democrats have any up-and-coming benchers out there that are out there? I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as my friend Doug Giles would say, she's nuttier than a squirrel turd, so I just don't see how that one's going to work out very well nationally for the Democrats. I mean, are there any rock star Democrats out there that are really inspiring? And people said Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, might be an up-and-comer, and maybe, but I've seen him, I've watched him speak, and he again looks he seemed about as exciting as watching paint dry. So it's just fascinating. I know I don't want to do prognostication of who the front runner is in 4 years for the Republicans or Democrats, but it's something to just turn around as you watch these Democrats go bat crap crazy and apoplectic over Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It's just fun to watch it, because you're like, the best they can do is send out Maxine Waters. I mean, if everybody that's the face of this whole meltdown of the Democrats, is there anybody that's been out there more than Maxine Waters? I mean, we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, this is what a wig and jewelry can do. Hey, Democrats, keep sending your out there. Keep it up. We like it. It's a marvelous thing. Keep that thing going out there. We love it. Seriously, you think about that, the Democrats just keep putting this stuff out there and these people out there. And you know what? The other thing they keep doing is they say how Elon's greedy. He's a bad guy. But they're not. They're intellectually bankrupt, and they just cannot seem to. Good morning to you and Chad. 2/14/25. I had reservations for tomorrow. Well, you and Chad having a secret getaway here tomorrow? I'll send the towels and cigarettes for you, and you guys enjoy yourselves. I don't know what that means. I have a reservation for tomorrow. No, you don't have to have a reservation on the show tomorrow. We're not. We were talking about this yesterday. Fixed pricing. It's not the time that you want to go out to dinner tomorrow night. First of all the restaurants will be full, and it's going to be a Friday, so it's even going to be more full than usual. And it's also restaurants, they gouge you. You're like, oh, I like the chicken marsala. And they're like, I'm sorry, we do not have the chicken marsala today. We have the fixed price, and it's $85 per person. You're like, okay, normally get the chicken marsala for $30 a person, and now you're charging me $85 a person because you're throwing in some creme brulee at the end. So, yeah, it's a ripoff. It really can be a ripoff to go out on Valentine's Day. So that brings a question of the day. You guys have already distracted me in the chat room, and I'm proud of you for that. That's very good work. It's very good work, Jeff. I appreciate you. It's very good work distracting me like that. Ladies, help us out. First, I'm going to watch this. Ladies, you in the chat room, tell us what you want for Valentine's Day. And men, why don't you tell us in the chat room what you think the woman wants for Valentine's Day? I think you're going to have two totally different answers. And let's do the same thing. Men, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And ladies, what do you think your man wants for Valentine's Day? That's the question of the day. It is also a very fertile and fruitful reminder. Fertile? I shouldn't say that on Valentine's Day, should I? It's a very good reminder for all of us to remember that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. 2/13/25 today. 2/13/25 today. I'm so confused. Jeff's talking to the people in the chat. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm talking. I don't know what he's doing. It'd be good to have all of you here there. I appreciate you. Oh, I put the wrong date on the show. It's 2/13/25, right? The wrong date's on the show. We'll fix it later. All right, we'll fix it later. I don't know what the hell we're talking about here. I work under stressful situations, okay? It's like a limestone mine where I'm processing retirement around here for the federal government. These are horrible working conditions, but when I complain to HR, they realize that I was HR. So I'll fix whatever's broken, I'll fix it later. But I still like the theory that you had a reservation for the 14th at Chad, and you guys are going to, I'll give you the towel and cigarette. I don't judge. I'm not going to judge at all. I like my theory better than calling out a mistake. Anyway, good morning, everybody. How's it? Face good. We're already off the rails, and we just got started this morning. If you're on first of all, go back to the question of the day, because some of you have already distracted me from there. What do you want, ladies? Tell us. We need to know. We men need to know what it is the most impressive thing that we can get you for Valentine's Day. And men, go ahead, lay it out on the table. Tell her what you want for Valentine's Day. You're not going to get it, but you tell her what you want. And ladies, you tell us what you think men want. And men, what do you think your lady wants? I mean, you're going to go. Maybe you've already gone out shopping. Maybe you're just going to give her the Hallmark card. I'm thinking, I've seen a couple of memes like this. You might want to go buy her a dozen eggs, and instead of going to Jared, you said, I went to King Soopers, I went to Kroger, I went to Safeway, I went to Vaughn's if I'm in California. I went to the grocery store for you, baby, and here's a dozen eggs. Now, whip me up an omelet, would you? That'd be a lovely Valentine's Day. She's going to get a dozen eggs, and you're going to get an omelet. That could be the quid pro quo. That could lead to some very romantic situations there. It could. So what are you going to give people for Valentine's Day? That is the question of the day, and feel free. And all the platforms, you do know that on the conversations that are out there, you can, if you would, on all the conversations out there, you can comment, and they come right in here to our studio here. And don't be deceived. Evidently, I have a wrong date out there floating around. It's Thursday, the 13th day of February, year of our Lord 2025. I spent a whole month going back and correcting because I kept saying we were doing shows in 2024. So listen, it's some of these things I do myself, and sometimes I screw them up. I know it's hard for you to understand that I'm not perfect. I know you have high expectations for me, but what do you want for Valentine's Day, women? Men, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And then what's the perception of the opposite gender? Because men are for Mars, women are for Venus. And sometimes they're all a pain in the anus, Uranus. So, yeah. Anyway, tell us what you want for Valentine's Day. Ladies, this is the time for you to throw down some hints right now. And men, this is the time for you to throw down your hints. And maybe you just want peace and quiet. But I'm thinking the egg thing. You give her a dozen eggs, and she's going to be happy because it's very expensive. It's like a diamond now. And you give her a dozen eggs, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, woman, make me an omelet. And see how far that gets you. You might be sleeping on the couch, and you may not get any Valentine's love, but you will get an omelet out of it. It's just the omelet may be thrown at you. All right, let's see. Trump is calling for the closure of the Department of Education. We've known this. Yesterday, they asked him, how soon do you want this thing closed? And he says, it's a con job. He calls the Department of Education a con job. And isn't it, though? Think this through. I know there's some unionites out there and teachers, and people say, oh, my God, Donald Trump is going to close the Department of Education. He hates the children. I think you could argue that people who want to keep the Department of Education open would possibly be the ones that have a disdain for children. With the United States of America was number one in the world of education, hands down, before Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education. Before that thing was started, we were number one. Now, in all scores by all platforms, we are number 40. We are number 40 of the. We're number 40 in the whole thing. We're number 40 of all. There's third world countries that have higher education ratings and test scores than we do in our country. I was listening to a Bill Bennett, former education secretary under Ronald Wilson Reagan, and he said Ronald Reagan wanted to close the Department of Education, but it was still kind of new, and they held up his nomination and said, you can have Bill Bennett, but just don't, you can't close it. He can't move to close it. We'll agree it. And so evidently Bill Bennett says Ronald Reagan came to him and said, well, Okay, don't go close it, but try to make sense of it. And Bill Bennett said there is no making sense of it. And that was back in the 80s. And now I think we even know there is no making sense of this thing. So Ronald Reagan wanted to close it, and Trump may actually be able to pull this thing off. Now Donald Trump and Linda McMahon, she's going to start her confirmation hearing today. He can't close it. He cannot executive order close it. Now, they can trim it down, they can direct it, but to actually get rid of that cabinet position is going to take an act of Congress. And I'm waiting to see how these acts of Congress start moving and how Mike Johnson is going to advance that in the House and how they're going to advance that through the Senate. But your thoughts on the Department of Education, feel free to jump out there. Trump got a legal win yesterday. They always run headlines about his legal wins and how he's going to, whether he's been successful or unsuccessful in certain areas. Well, I have to tell you, he got a legal win. And that legal win is that they have decided that he can offer these buyout programs for the federal government employees. And I just thought that was weird. I pointed this out earlier in the week. I said, isn't that weird that you have union employees that are in the government labor unions that say, yeah, I'll take the buyout. I'll take 7, 8, 9 month buyout. Let me go. I am ready to go for the buyout. And in going for the buyout, the union comes in and says, no, you're a union worker and you cannot take a buyout. You have to continue to work here. That kind of tells you the prioritization of the union. It's not for the pleasure and the pleasantness of the union members. It's actually just so they didn't want to give up the union dues. And it was funny that it was the union who stepped in to offer a very generous buyout that wasn't a part of a collective bargaining. It's just something, hey, we'll do this. And think of the logic of it. It's a genius move by Trump and Musk, but they said, listen, a lot of you did build your lifestyles differently because we sent you home and we locked down government, and some of you started to homeschool and some of you just didn't like the commute. We understand there's a heck of a lot of stuff that there's a heck of a lot of stuff that is has changed in your life, and since some things have changed in your life, why don't we just offer you a buyout and you can go merrily run along? And I bet there's a lot of people in the chat rooms right now that would say, if my boss offered me a 7-month buyout, I would say, I just send my stuff out in a box because I ain't coming back to pick it up. I think that would be I think that'd be a lot of folks' response. All right, good to have you here on the program again. Our question of the day on this, again, I think the wrong date is circulating on one of the stream. We're like on 8 different pages, 7 or 8 different streams right now. We're on the X, we're on Rumble, we're on several Facebook pages, we're on the YouTube, we're on all these platforms. And so somewhere the date's wrong. It may be on all of them. I don't know. So the date is wrong. And so here's what you need to do is just remember today's the 13th, tomorrow's the 14th, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And here's what you can also know, my friends. You ready for this? You ready? You ready for this? You can answer our question of the day in all the platforms. They come right here to the studio. And that is what do you want for Valentine's Day? Women, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And then answer it for each other. Men, what do you think a woman wants for Valentine's Day? This one says, I would like Trump to have an executive order removing Valentine's Day and daylight wasting time in one stroke of a pen. My wife gets Valentine's every day. I don't know how to interpret that, but lucky you. Scott says, men's answer of the day. That's what AOD. It's a small screen here, and I thought for one day he was talking about AOC, and I'm like, what is he? I'm confused. Answer of the day is luck. Is that somebody saying they want to get lucky on Valentine's Day, or they just want luck in life, like a 4-leaf clover? Have some lucky charms, but be careful. They have those dangerous dyes that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is warning you about. All right, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show today. Jimmy is my name, and I hope you're all doing well. Question of the day. Give us some more answers on that. The question of the day. What do women want for Valentine's Day? What do men want for Valentine's Day? And I think what men think, here, we guys sit here going, really, I got to go get you some flowers. They're going to be expensive. I'm going to get you a card. And you know what's always interesting? Here's what's going to be fun today. Not as much as Valentine's Day, but Mother's Day. If you'd like some great entertainment, I'll tell you this is what you do. You go to like the Walgreens or the Rite Aid or wherever you buy your greeting cards. I don't think most men don't go to the Hallmark store. Go there the night before Mother's Day and look at a bunch of dudes standing there at the wall of greeting cards and going, It's like cows looking at new gates. It is fascinating. Ladies, if you'd ever like to be humorized, go do that. Probably, maybe today you'll see some of the guys, they pick the cards out of the slot, they look at it and put it back down. Read it, they're putting thought in it. Like, oh, that's too mushy for me. Oh my God, who wrote that? I'm not Shakespeare. They're doing it. And Mother's Day's the worst because all the guys have to go out and get the Mother's Day card. And then they're trying to get the Mother's Day card for them. And then their kid forgot to get a Mother's Day card. They're getting the Mother's Day card from the kid. And it's a lot of stress on us men, ladies. Those two holidays, the Valentine's Day and the Mother's Day, they put a lot of anxiety in our hearts. And just so you know. So anyway, what do you want for Mother's Day, guys? Is there something you can get a guy for Valentine's Day? I mean, women want chocolate. They want a nice dinner, romantic dinner. They want to have some flowers delivered to them. That's a big deal. Do you get a man anything other than a greeting card for Valentine's Day? I'm trying to remember if, I don't know if you get anything for men get anything for Valentine's Day. Men get the short end of the stick here. The cigars, men would like cigars for Valentine's Day. That's a great one. I see that one popping up in the chat room there. That'd be a fantastic thing. But how many men get what they want for Valentine's Day? It's what we want versus what we get. They're oftentimes two different things. All right, let's switch gears here. A Valentine's Day question on all the platforms. Jump in here and let us know. And this is, ladies, this is time for you to throw a good hint out there as to what your Valentine's stocking should look like, or not stockings. That sounds dirty there. I was thinking Christmas stocking, and saying Valentine's stocking doesn't work very well as Christmas stocking. So anyway, what do you want under the tree for Valentine's Day? Let us know, ladies. Just go ahead because we're probably going to sacrifice and get it for you anyway. All right. Let me welcome in my guest here this morning. Jeff Goudreau is a man who has served his country and is a former U.S. Army Green Beret, and he joins us here on the Lakey Unleashed Daily Stream. Mr. Goudreau, welcome to the program, sir. Let me get the right screen here. There, welcome in.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Very well. Thank you for asking there. Valentine's Day, is that something that you celebrate? I don't know if you're married. I don't know if you got the lady friends, but any suggestions here before we get to real serious topics?
Wow, maybe... I don't know. That's a good one. Maybe
ladies get everything. The guys don't get anything. We get a card. The ladies get the flowers, the meals, and all that stuff. And it's usually not even the restaurant we want to go to. It's someone else.
Maybe a nice pair of socks.
We always get socks for Father's Days and Christmas as well. All right, Jeff Goudreau, thanks for hopping in here to the program. I wanted to have you on. There's this crazy story. We'll talk about the military, and as someone that served as a Green Beret, and now you're kind of watching the transformation happening under Pete Hegseth. I'll get your thoughts on that, but there's an interesting story I had not seen, that the United States of America has seized the Venezuelan president's airplane. They said, you're under sanctions. You didn't have the right to buy this $13 million Dassault Falcon 900EX airplane. At first, give me the base of the story, because I got a couple of questions. This came from action by new Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We target of opportunity. Nicolas Maduro's plane was in a place where we could interdict it. And so Marco Rubio did the legalities, got cut through the red tape, and now we own it. Apparently the plane was purchased illegally in the United States, and so that made it simple for us to repossess, I guess you could say.
Is this the same plane? And this is what I haven't found of the story. A couple of weeks ago, Venezuela was not going to take the illegals back. And then they said, we'll take the illegals back after President Trump threatened them. And then they said, we'll take the illegals back, and we'll even let you use the president's plane here. Is this the plane that
yeah, this is the plane they're talking about, right? It's a nice private jet. Why not?
That's beautiful.
And to be honest, these guys came back as heroes. I mean, Diosdado, which is the number 2 in Venezuela, greeted them as heroes. These guys are obviously gang members.
Wow. Venezuela, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of these guys were freed from Venezuelan prison for crimes they had committed, and said, if you get across the border by midnight, we'll let you out of prison. They migrated up to into the United States of America. And so when some of these guys literally got kicked out of prison and told to be out of the country by the dawn the next day or something, and yet they got greeted back in some PR war as a hero.
No, absolutely. And so you can kind of see how that would be effective for a small insurgency, a group of individuals from a country that is not, there's no love lost between us and Venezuela. So why not have all the criminals come to the United States and form gangs and sell fentanyl and do all kinds of nasty business?
Now, the United States doesn't recognize Maduro as a legitimate president, and it seems like maybe are we seeing some change in policy? We don't think about Venezuela that much. We knew that Maduro was a bad cat, a bad hombre, as George W. Bush used to say about people. He's a bad hombre. But is U.S. policy changing? Are we ramping up enforcement against Venezuela here?
Venezuela's tricky. So Maduro is the devil we know. We know he's a bad guy. It's a little easier to understand Nicolas Maduro because we realize what he's going to do. We realize his objectives. And right now, foreign policy dictates that we have to stick with Monroe Doctrine. That said, if you were to look for somebody who would replace Nicolas Maduro, it's hard for the United States president and his staff. Obviously, now he'll have an intelligence community that is working with him, not against him, as we saw 4 years ago with Gina Haspel. And the entire IC was working against President Trump and undermining him, not giving him information that he needed. But now, fast forward 4 years, it's new. And so, the IC, the intelligence community, the people who President Trump relies on for intelligence information about who he can trust in these countries, they're just getting set up. So President Trump doesn't know who to trust in Venezuela, who could actually replace Nicolas Maduro. And so that's the tricky part. It's going to take time to develop those relationships and to vet prospective replacements for Nicolas Maduro.
It's fascinating to watch this whole thing unfold because he's run elections, and did he not? Isn't there someone in exile that's the exiled Venezuelan president that we do recognize?
Not
Venezuela. There's one country down there that we actually recognize someone else as the president, but it's not Venezuela.
Right. So it is, but this is the tricky part of it. We may recognize somebody else, but do we really, is this individual vetted? We don't recognize him as the president. We recognize that he won the election. We recognize that Nicolas Maduro did not win the election and the election was fraudulent. That said, last time around, we did recognize somebody as the president, Juan Guaido, and yet this individual was able to come and go as he pleased in the country. And so he lost favor with I'd say the president of the United States rather quickly because he was a man who could not be trusted. And so, like I said, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough year of foreign policy in Venezuela, just trying to figure out who can be trusted. And until then, I think that the president will continue to work with Nicolas Maduro to a limited extent because he is the devil that we know.
Yeah. Let me ask you the question. We've U.S. go back recent history, past history. We have not had a good we've not had a good track record when it comes to a foreign policy of regime changes out there. Is the Trump administration, do you think, kind of aware of that we got to be very careful about calling for? We can hate Maduro all we want, but as you say, he's a devil that we know. And our history from meddling from the outside does not go we have not been very good when it came to regime changes.
Right. Well, there's a reason for that. And so there was a coup attempt 4 years ago. And the reason it went south was because the CIA essentially sabotaged it. And that was because, obviously, and you've seen this time and time again with the people who are around President Trump, the administration of itself, the intelligence community was undermining President Trump. They weren't giving him the full picture. They were withholding evidence and information from President Trump, and it became a real problem. And so now, fast forward 4 years, it's going to be a different story, I think. I think President Trump can actually trust his intelligence community. He'll be able to trust his, the individuals of the NSA and the CIA and these elements that are supposed to go out and actually conduct these special missions in these foreign countries.
If you're just listening to the audio of the program, you're listening to Jordan Goudreau, and he's a former U.S. Green Beret, and we're talking a little bit about Venezuela. We're going to about plane repossession in a moment. I got a question for you on that. But here's a question. What do you think we are hoping to accomplish if we don't know who we want to run Venezuela? We know it's a problem, banana republic, if you will, but we don't know who we want. By repoing the plane, by all these sanctions we're implementing,
Right.
what do you think our end game is at this point then?
Well, listen, it's the Monroe Doctrine. So we have to follow, we do follow the Monroe Doctrine. We don't want enemy states in our hemisphere. And right now, with the advent of the BRICS nations, we have a buildup of enemy states, and China moving in to say, Brazil, for instance, if one of the card-carrying members of the BRICS nations, they have trade partnerships and they have mining contracts with Brazil. Argentina is forming a partnership with the BRICS or with China. Same sort of thing as Brazil. And so what we want as Americans is to have our hemisphere free of enemy. And I think all Americans can agree that that would provide for a safer America. And so Venezuela is an interesting, country because it has white space, it has a tremendous amount of resources, and yet it is fully aligned with the BRICS nations. It is trying to become a member, and it has military and trade partnerships with both Russia and China. And so it's a problem for the United States because it's in our back door. It is white space for China, Russia. If you saw, I think it was a couple of months back, there were Russian subs in the Caribbean Sea, and they were refueling in Venezuela and in Cuba and doing training exercises. And that's a problem for the United States from a national strategic standpoint.
It is amazing just hearing what you're talking about with Venezuela. And then we saw the swift action we had to take with the Panama Canal to get China out of that canal. And then you heard, it wasn't just President Trump talking swagger about Greenland. It was becoming a real threat that Russia and or China could end up using it as a shipping lane and using it as a base that we didn't need. These enemy nations, these people that are not our allies, leaking into our hemisphere, it really got worse than we thought, I think, or more than we imagined over the last 4 years, didn't it?
No, absolutely. Well, when you don't push back against the enemy, then they tend to invade our white space at a strategic level. And white space, again, it's our freedom of movement. And it's places, for instance, China, our white space would be Taiwan. It's areas where we would be their perceived enemy. It's where we can comfortably operate and we can stage military forces and so on and so forth. And so if you look at the Caribbean, we've got Venezuela where Russia and China could potentially stage forces. We have Cuba, where you saw with the Cuban Missile Crisis, where missiles and military units were placed, which created an international incident. And so you think about it, this would be a prelude to World War III. And over the last 4 years, under a softer and a more dovish foreign policy, we've seen what happens when we are not proactive in our foreign policy as pertains to South America.
Let me come back to the original part of the story. Jordan Goudreau is my story. He's a former U.S. Army Green Beret. He's also, outside of Special Forces, the founder of a group called Silver Corp USA Private Security Firm, specializing in high-risk operations, and you have extensive experience in unconventional warfare, intelligence, tactical leadership, obviously pointing all back to your Special Forces day. Let me ask you this question. When the Dominican Republic helped us commandeer and or take this plane back, the repo of the plane. I remember this show that was on History Channel or something a few years ago. One of the cable channels is called Airplane Repo or Plane Repo, and these guys were repoing planes and people were behind on their payments, jumping over fences and sneaking their way into airports. How is it that you repo an airplane, and how did this go down? Did they come in with guns? Was the Special Forces that did this?
Yeah, so no, not at all. So this was the repo in and of itself was not at all. It was illegal. It was just, the plane was there. Marco Rubio reached out to the right people to seize the plane, cut through the legal red tape, and that was it. Yeah. It was that simple. It was.
Has Maduro or Venezuela, do we know, have they said anything? Hey, give me my plane back?
No, I mean, really, there's nothing that they can do. They can petition to have it back, but listen, at the end of the day, we are the most powerful military force on the planet. And we are able to project our military might anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And
if the government needs to get rid of a plane, I travel internationally and I have a charity organization. I'd be happy to take that plane off their hands, Jordan. But I don't think I can afford the fuel bill for it. So I think I'll continue coach on Belgian Airlines.
Exactly. Well, if you do get it, let me know and I'll take a ride on the plane with you.
If you know you probably know some good pilots. We could work out a deal here, Jordan. We could work this thing out. Former U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret, founder of Silver Corp USA, Jordan Goudreau. I appreciate you hopping on. Is there a website way do people follow you and learn more about you?
Yeah, I think my Twitter's best. It's Jordan G. Goudreau at Twitter.
You got it. Hey, Jordan, appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you for your service to your country. And we appreciate you hopping here on the Lakey Unleashed. Jordan G. Goudreau on the Twitter device. And in just a moment, I will absolutely positively give him a follow on the X and on the Twitter. Twitter. Ooh, it's one of those days, isn't it? Good to have all of you here on the show. Jimmy Lakey is my name. If you're new to the Lakey Unleashed podcast, the crowds are still gathering on all the platforms out there. Hello to the Rumblers out there. Look, we got a handful of the Rumble people starting to grow, and yet you guys leave. There's like one or two guys that talk in Rumble. Everybody else is kind of silent, like you're afraid. Listen, you don't have to be ashamed that you are following the Lakey Unleashed. This is you don't have to be ashamed at all. You just jump in there. Feel free to. Question of the day. People still bring in answers. What do men want for Valentine's Day? Jim says a nice scotch. Men want a good steak dinner. No spell check there on the Facebook. Cigars has already come up. Dre says, I would absolutely love a home-cooked meal. It feels like when you come home, it comes from the heart more unless you can't cook, then DoorDash and get rid of all the evidence. So fake it. You're okay, Dre's okay. And maybe, men, you might want to know this. The lady may want that candlelight dinner, and you're like, I don't want to cook a bunch of stuff. There's a good idea. That's a good replate it. You like your re-gift stuff for Christmas, go down to the Applebee's and get the tequila lime chicken or whatever they have, their baby back ribs from Chili's, and tell her you worked all day in the kitchen. Whatever her favorite restaurant is. Go get some breadsticks from, what's the place that has the breadsticks? The Olive Garden. Go get some OG breadsticks and tell her you baked them from scratch, and I bet she won't believe you. Anyway, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And men, I'm just trying to help you out. That you're screwed either way. You're screwed. And ladies, understand that guys, like, can we do tomorrow? If you don't have a reservation at most restaurants for tomorrow, you ain't getting in for Valentine's Day. I just hate to break the news to you. It's Friday. It's one of those rare instances of Friday. When I was a married man, I have to tell you that I always thought, for some reason in my head, you ever get something seared in your head, like it's locked in your head for good? And I remember our class parties. Do they still have elementary school parties for Valentine's Day? And remember, you decorate a shoebox and you got these little cheap Valentine's cards, and the teacher would give us a list of all the students, because you couldn't just pick your favorites. You had to give every child whether they were a booger eater or whether they were weird or you didn't like them, you had to give every kid a Valentine's Day card. And you did the Valentine's Day parties. I don't know if you did that. And you got the little heart candies that said, will you marry me, or will you be my Valentine, or whatever. A Valentine's Day party was a big deal in elementary school. It's one of the favorite parties of the year. We got the room mothers from the PTA would help throw the party, and there was cookies at the end of the day. Anybody remember the Valentine's Day party? I don't know. I think my son had Valentine's Day parties in elementary school, because I remember the Valentines looked different. But anyway. Somehow it got seared in my beady little brain that Valentine's was always on Tuesday, like the second Tuesday of February. Because I just remember one day it was a Tuesday, and we got to interrupt class on Tuesday. And we didn't have to do it was the most exciting, because Tuesday, even in like third grade, you're like, oh, this sucks. I got to wait till Friday. And it was just so exciting. It was very, very exciting that we interrupted class on Tuesday. And so I'll tell you this, I'm telling a story on myself here. In my head, it was Tuesday, the Valentine's Day, like second Tuesday of the thing. And that's how it happened. And so I remember I was dating, and I was working at a radio station when I just first flew to Colorado, working at a radio station in Denver. And they had asked me, they said, hey, we got somebody, we want to hear how they sound in the air. They don't have an air check. Would you mind going in, like, and helping them crack the mic open, and like do it on a Sunday evening or sometime when nobody's really listening to the station, and just kind of coach him and listen to him. We want to hear it and let him have a couple of moments on the air. And I said, okay, I can do that. I don't know why we didn't record it, but they do real time. Sometimes you don't have the equipment to pretend you're a DJ. So they wanted to give the person an opportunity to be a real DJ for a moment because of whatever reason it was. So the person I was dating at the time, the lady I was dating at the time, the girl I was dating at the time, she says, oh, I'll go to the radio station with you. I said, okay, that's weird. And we were dating pretty seriously, and I said, that's weird. So it's a Sunday, and it's like 7, 8 o'clock at night. No one's listening to the radio at that time anyway. So this person kind of gets to do an on-air audition, and they're doing the radio. And the whole time, the girl I was dating staring at me, looking at me. I'm like, I don't know why she's here. This is kind of weird. This is a very strange thing going on here. Why is this person here with me? And at the end of the day, I think I said, well, I got a morning show to do, or busy. Have a great night. Drove her home and went on my merry way. So I didn't realize what had happened. And then on Tuesday, I made sure she had candy and flowers and Valentine's things. And she goes, and she looked at me, she said, you don't have a clue, do you? And I said, what do you mean I don't have a clue? She goes, what is today? I said, today's Valentine's Day. It's always Tuesday. And she said, no, today is actually the 16th day of February. It's a Tuesday. Valentine's Day is always the 14th day of February. And I said, well, when was that? She goes, why do you think I was hanging out all day looking at you on Sunday going, what are we going to do for Valentine's? She didn't want to say it. See, this is the problem. They would just give you the look. And so, yeah, she was hanging out all day thinking we're going to have Valentine's party or celebration. And I didn't know. I was auditioning to get somebody on the radio station. I had no clue. But, hey, I came through on Tuesday because I showed up with flowers and all that stuff. So, anyway, there's Happy Valentine's Day. What do you want for Valentine's Day? Somebody says Valentine's Day is dinner, a movie, etc., especially the etc. Man, you people are a little bit dirty-minded. Hey, right now they are voting on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services. That is happening right now, I believe. Also at 1 p.m., so at 11 o'clock Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Donald Trump is going to hold another press conference from the Oval Office, and he's going to take questions and give some updates on his tariff program. That's happening there as well. Let me play a couple of video scoops for you, and I want to let you know that that's... by the way, this morning, a lot of you got a notification that the Patreon page has dropped the Patreon page has dropped a new interview, and it's my long-form interview with L.A. Marzulli. If you are not a follower and a subscriber of my Patreon page, patreon.com/JimmyLakey.com. There's some of these are long-form interviews that we just don't want to do in the daily update. Some of these are topics of conversations that people on YouTube and the monitors and the filters don't like you talking about, such as a little effer or COVIDs and stuff like that. So anyway, a lot of that's on the Patreon page. Patreon.com/JimmyLakey. It's just $9.95 a month and a 7-day free trial. We dropped a new one this morning. It was recorded Friday, and it dropped this morning. And this is L.A. Marzulli. I played a snippet of it yesterday, but let me play it again. It's a great interview. We talked about the Nephilim, which were fallen angels that have interbred with women. Genesis chapter 3 narrative, he calls it. We talked about Roswell. We talked about an explanation behind cattle mutilation. We talked about government cover-ups. We talked about all sorts of stuff. You got to go hear it. It's almost right at an hour long. It's L.A. Marzulli and myself, and this is just a portion of it I thought you might enjoy.
Non-human biologics that were recovered from these crash sites. And yet, my phone doesn't ring. I get a few emails. I mean, what do you have to do, before people really start to wake up? And that's full disclosure.
Yeah, I've seen some of the tapes, and could you tell us more? I can't. We'll have to go private. I've signed papers. I can't do it. And I don't know if anybody's diving any deeper. It's just, non-human biologics. I guess we'll talk about that some other time. I mean, that's part of what we were talking about there is it's in congressional testimony that whistleblowers have come forward to the hallowed halls of Congress, and they have come forward in the hallowed halls of Congress and said, what have you recovered from these spacecrafts, Roswell, etc.? What do we have? And the guy said, I can't answer this in public, but I can tell you is it biologics, human remains, and the whistleblowers and people under sworn testimony threatened with perjury said we have right now non-human biologics. biology, something that was alive. It's not human. We don't know what it is. And he also talks about, I believe in that. Jeff says, can't wait for the full interview. We'll be checking it right after the show. It's a really interesting interview, and it goes back to biblical days and Genesis chapter 3. And we I think we'll wrap it up in a nice bow at the end about what does this mean to us now. And I think you will enjoy it. It's at patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. It is just one of the ways that you can support this little broadcast that we do. All right, let me go through other news. We RFK vote. We're watching that Kash Patel should get out of committee today. Linda McMahon is going to begin her confirmation hearing for the Department of Education. And if anybody's out there and they start saying, I can't believe he's going to close the Department of Education. First of all, Donald Trump can't close it. He can reshape it. He can reform it. He can trim the budget. But a lot of this is going to have to be done through the hallowed halls of Congress. So just because Donald Trump wants something, what you have to do is be pressuring your senators and your Congress people to pull off the Trump agenda. If you want the Department of Education closed permanently so it stops screwing up your kids, it's not just going to be Donald Trump holding a signing ceremony. He can alter it a little bit, but it's going to come because of the acts of Congress, and you need to let them know that you want that Trump agenda carried out if that's what you're looking for out there. I told my friend yesterday, last evening, I was chatting with him, and we talked about Tulsi Gabbard. She got through the committee yesterday, and she is now the director of national intelligence. The national intelligence agencies are the ones that put her on the S list, which doesn't stand for poop list, but it is SSS code, which means she had to go through special security clearance for years at the airport and frisked and groped and grabbed and screened extra and get to the airport hours ahead of time. And her whole family did. Her husband did as well, because the intelligence community decided to retaliate against her. They didn't like her, and they put her through hell. And it was one of those confirmations that I was optimistic that it could happen. I wasn't sure it would happen. Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation is one that I'm pleasantly surprised that she got through. And I cannot wait to see how this works out, that a woman who was tortured in a way and bothered and targeted by the Intelligence Committee, she's now the director of national intelligence. So Tulsi Gabbard, congratulations. So now we got to get Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation hearing is going on now, and I believe he's supposed to get through. I believe the numbers are there, and Kash Patel should be coming out of the committee, and Linda McMahon is starting her confirmation hearing today. I'll get to that story tomorrow. Let me save on that. Yesterday, it also became known that Donald Trump is taking moves. He talked to Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, and they are going to, as of this Friday, Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance are going to Munich, I believe, and they're having the first round of conversations about an immediate ceasefire and an end to the battle when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. And President Trump just jumped right in there, and both parties agreed that they would have that conversation yesterday. And they had a conversation, and as quickly as tomorrow, the J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are going to be the U.S. delegates there in Munich, talking about how they're going to end it. It was also interesting. There's a foreign policy change that happened. Joe Biden was just talking about with Jordan Goudreau about the weak foreign policy. If you remember the start of Ukraine, Russia said they're going to be part of NATO, and we said, oh, they'll never be a part of NATO. And then halfway through the week, Anthony Blinken and Demented Joe decided, oh, yeah, we're going to bring them into NATO. And that's just flipping the finger off there at Vladimir Putin, who just doesn't want a NATO country right directly on his border. He wants a buffer. And so it was a stupid foreign policy. It was all over foreign policy. As Donald Trump said, it's a war that didn't need to happen. It's a war that would not have happened had America been walking softly but carrying a big stick and say, don't you dare. And that's what I think you're seeing here, that Vladimir Putin knows, okay, we're going to have to wrap this thing up here. And he wants to wrap it up, but he doesn't save face. But two foreign policy things happened yesterday. Pete Hegseth, our new defense secretary, was in Belgium, Brussels, for the NATO allies meeting with some presidents, meeting with some of his counterparts. And he said it is not feasible to think that the Ukraine is going to be able to get all of their pre-war boundaries back. They're going to have to cede some land to Russia. That's just the law of warfare. And it's also not feasible that we would ever let them into NATO, which is, I think, a great policy. And they said, and if we ever put some people there to kind of preserve the peace there during the transition, we need to make sure that these people are not under NATO, that they can be NATO troops, but we're not going to count things that happen as attack one, attack all. We need to, Ukraine is not, this is a peacekeeping mission. This is not a NATO mission. So it's fascinating just to hear the leadership. And he also scolded the NATO countries. If you saw the interviews with, or the live commentary with Pete Hegseth, he scolded the NATO countries. He said, we have bred a spirit of dependence and you are going to have to pony up. And the British guy was sitting to his left. He says, we have heard you and we are, and we will begin to increase. So it's just interesting and fun to watch people taking leadership roles and solving problems. Think of all the people that were left stranded in Venezuela, the prisoners that are, there's still prisoners in Russia. We've got astronauts stranded in space that we're going to have to send Elon Musk up to get here in his company. Just, I think next month, I think they're going to go up and get them. Think of all the disasters that were left. We go back, if you missed it, the Jordan Goudreau. Did you know that one of the reasons that we had to go into the Panama Canal and threaten that was because both ends of the entrance and exit into both ends were really controlled. Those ports were controlled by the Chinese. And the BRICS initiative is their bridges and roads initiative, and that's where the commie Chinese say, hey, you let us do this, we'll build your bridges and roads, but we have to have access and we have to have control of them. That's what the BRICS initiative that Jordan Goudreau was talking about. And did you know that Argentina is been working on a deal with Russia and China? So all of this these enemies that we know that are threats, and they talk a good game. We can't collude with Russia, all that stuff that Russia, she's a Russian asset and stuff. They're not really afraid of Russia. They let Russia and China move right into our hemisphere in violation of our Monroe Doctrine, to where we don't want allies bumping up against us. And it's just good to see leadership back. It was great to see Pete Hegseth laying it on the line. Here's how we're going to do it. Ukraine's not going to get all their land back. We'll figure that out. Putin's going to behave himself. And NATO, you're going to have to pony up some money. And they're not coming to NATO. We'll say that again, not coming to NATO. It's just fascinating to watch what leadership accomplishes in the real wide world. I think this is one of those fascinating stories. Oh, the Senate committee is meeting also now simultaneously on the Kash Patel nomination. I think he's got the votes he's going to get out of committee, and I think he will also get out of the confirmation. So it's a glorious thing, and it makes me very, very happy. Now, this is a story that I think is interesting. Last week, it wasn't as public, but Pam Bondi decided to sue Governor Pritzker, the big fat governor of Illinois, and she sued him and said, you guys are having sanctuary city policies. And so it was in the news, but it wasn't in the news. Last night, Pam Bondi went to the microphone and she named the governor of New York. She named Letitia James, the district attorney for Manhattan and the New York City area, and also the Department of Motor Vehicles operator in New York City, and the entire state of New York, and sued them and says, we're filing charges against you for aiding and abetting illegals and interfering with federal operations. There's a supremacy clause in our Constitution that says a state cannot make a law that overrides and overarches. If there's two conflicting laws, it's the U.S. Constitution, the federal law, that supersedes in this instance. And what they were doing in New York, and one of the things, the reason the DMV is involved, is the ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, has said, hey, listen, in New York, you decided to start giving driver's licenses away to everybody, whether they can prove their citizenship, they just get a driver's license. So they all got driver's license. We'd like to know the addresses they put on those driver's licenses. And New York has not complied. And so they're being sued. So it's going to be fascinating. I put this out on the X last night. I wonder how far down the list is going to have I wonder how far down the list Pam Bondi and some of these agencies are going to have Colorado. Colorado is, I don't know, Jared Polis is a lying sack of Jewia, and he says we're not a sanctuary state, and yet he signed a bill a couple of years ago that forbids local law enforcement sheriffs from cooperating with ICE. If ICE puts a detainer on someone, we'd rather let them out of jail than let ICE know that they're in our jail. It's illegal. Those guys can be prosecuted for doing that. And so I'm wondering, Jared Polis, is he shaking in his knickers there, that maybe Colorado is going to be in Bondi's crosshairs as well? Is Jared Polis going to be, in the state of Colorado, going to, what they're doing is they're not just suing him, but they're cutting off the federal funding. And they're saying, okay, you're not going to cooperate with us, then we're not going to give you the federal funding back. And that's, let me tell you, you start cutting money off away from a politician, and it gets very, very interesting. So watch the next couple of days. Last week was Illinois. This week was New York. There is another state that's pretty dastardly. I think California is also pretty dastardly about protecting illegals. And of course, you had the mayor of Denver early on say that he's going to stand to the city limits and he's going to fight off ICE himself. And he quickly backed off that. So that's going to be interesting for those of us who live in Colorado. I know many of you across America watch the program throughout the day and on the platforms. But listen, I'm telling you, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if Colorado and which state is next. I guarantee you there's other states coming. They're putting this together, my friends. They're marching this down. They're dotting every I. They're crossing every T, and they're making it known. These are the policies of America, and we're going to stand by these policies, and we're not going to reward and allow illegal criminals and illegals to come into our country. And like hell, we're going to do that. It's just not going to happen. And Illinois is now going to have a. Letitia James, I think, was great. She was named in the charges. And so she's going to have to take a lot of her efforts and energy to defend her big butt, even though, and it's fantastic. This is not retaliation. This is, hey, you're standing in the way. You're not cooperating as a district attorney with our federal law enforcement. You're not cooperating. So either cooperate or we file charges against you. And so this is not lawfare. This is truly, truly, truly just the supremacy clause of the Constitution says you have to. If there's two conflicting laws or policies, it's the United States federal law that supersedes, and the people in New York have not, the leaders in New York have not been allowing that to happen. So Pam Bondi went last week is Illinois. This week, yesterday was New York. And Jared Polis, I wonder if you're next there, buddy. I'm just curious. I wonder if old Jared's going to be next. I don't know. We'll find out, but we'll keep a sharp eye on that. By the way, the Trump administration is very serious about this stuff. They say our policies are our policies. Stop fighting. We're going to do what we're going to do here. Remember, we talked about over the weekend, it was discovered by Elon Musk and the Doge team that despite an executive order, the FEMA director at the time made a full payment to New York City for FEMA, which people in North Carolina is still suffering. People in California are still suffering out there from the wildfires, the hurricanes, the floods. I mean, FEMA is for emergency management and to help Americans, and it's not meant to house illegal criminals and illegal aliens. By definition, all illegal aliens are illegal criminals because they're here illegally. It's pretty simple to explain that if you have an open mind. Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, she said this. This is her Twitter feed. She says, I have clawed back the full payment that FEMA deep state activists unilaterally gave to the New York City migrant hotels. So the FEMA activist, this deep state swamp creature, this swamp monster that I hope is going to be perp walked and prosecuted. That's my hope. She wrote a check to the New York City hotels in New York City and said, yeah, keep the illegals there. Here's another $82 million or something like that, 40-something million, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. And Kristi Noem tweeted this out last night. She said FEMA was funding the Roosevelt Hotel that serves as the Tren de Aragua base of operations and was used to house Laken Riley's killer. So you see how evil and dastardly these people are. Not just disobey an order from your boss, not just spending taxpayer dollars, but they're funding, again, they want you to think it's the blueberries, right? Who's going to pick our blueberries? Who's going to clean our toilets? It's just these poor little migrants. No, listen. The Roosevelt Hotel FEMA was funding the Roosevelt Hotel that serves as Tren de Aragua base and operations and was used to house the killer of Laken Riley, and it was paid for by the Biden administration. Kristi Noem says, mark my words, there will not be a single penny spent that goes against the interest and the safety of the American people. I don't know about you, but I'm glad to see we have some real grown-ups working in the White House again. And I hope, I was talking to a friend last night as well. I said, I really hope it's one thing to, claw back the money, but these people they're violating orders. At which level does this become criminal? Oh, by the way, did you hear this? It was famous last week that in Colorado, the ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, that's a great question. Jeff's asked in the chat room, is this an accessory to murder? I don't know. But these people that are spending this money housing these people, by the way, well, they're putting blueberry pickers, Tren de Aragua gang members in the Roosevelt Hotel and let them order room service or what have you. There were still people, as of a couple of weeks ago, still homeless, literally homeless, living in tent cities in North Carolina. But we didn't have the money to give it to them. There's still a real recovery disaster going on in California. And yeah, we can blame Gavin Newsom and stuff, but there's real citizens out there that probably could use some help. But we can't help the citizens of North Carolina, the citizens of Florida, the citizens of California, because we have to house the gang members in New York City. Did you hear this? That the great story that last week in Aurora, Colorado, which our governor of the lying Sacagawea that he is, he said that there was no, he said there's nothing to see here in Aurora. There's no Tren de Aragua, and now we know there is, and they were going to do an ice raid, and someone leaked the ice raid. And Holman and everybody was upset because they showed up and the gang members were gone from the apartment complex that they knew they were at, that Jared told us our lying governor, dishonest, disingenuous Sacagawea that he is. They were gone and protesters were there. Leave the illegals alone. They're protesting, right? Tom Holman has announced that they think they know who did it and charges are about to be filed. I want to know where I've heard it came from the FBI. But as crazy as our governor is and those who surround him, it's going to be interesting if you run into one of these situations where somebody that you know ends up with charges against him in handcuffs because you're leaking information to the Tren de Aragua gangs, pretending that they're just defending the people who clean their toilets and defending people who pick the blueberries. We'll keep a sharp eye on it. They have not announced the name, but as of yesterday, we talked about that with Michael Letts on the show. It seems as if they have narrowed in on who leaked the information. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing. And again, there needs to be charges filed against these people. Aiding and abetting, giving aid and comfort to the enemy. These are all great questions. That there's got to be a legal angle that if you try to you can't have 50 states in a federalistic society. You can't have 50 states all pretending they're separate nations. That's not how it's supposed to work. There has to be, when it comes to a common defense, a common peace and a common defense, that's a role in the Constitution for the federal government. And housing illegal aliens in your city is part of the common defense, right? I think we could agree that that's our common safety. You can't have Colorado acting as if it's its own state. I mean, Jared Polis would love to be the Führer of the state. Jared Polis would love to be the president of the state. Jared Polis wishes he could be the president, but you're not, Jared. You're just a little slimy little governor that has lied to your people in the state of Colorado many, many times. You lied about COVID. You lied about education. You lied about Tren de Aragua. Usually when his mouth is moving, there's a lie coming out of it because he's not forthright. He's a very dishonest man by his policies and his record. And I think a lot of these people are. And now it's being exposed that their policies and records and what they've said they've accomplished versus what they do accomplish are lies. I don't know what charges can be brought, but I'm telling you, Pam Bondi charge. I've got to look. It happened last night, and I didn't get the details of it, but it happened last night. That that Pam Bondi said I'll file charges, and I'll see what she put on Letitia James and the governor up there, and it's going to be very, very interesting. I mentioned that the ICE people were met with protesters a moment ago. Let me ask you a question. What is it about Democrats and their protest? Did you hear this? And we're going to have Jay Ratliff, our aviation travel expert, and I've got some more content for the show as well. But listen to this. This is the protesters protesting Doge. If you haven't seen this, this is not a parody. This is not a Saturday Night Live skit. This is the real thing. This is the face of the Democrat Party. It's Maxine Waters out squawking. It's Chuck Schumer out making stuff up. Fortunately, Nancy Pelosi can't walk that fast because she broke her hip and she's on a walker and scooting around out there. But these are the people that are out there fighting against the Trump agenda. They've gone nuts here.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? We'll fight against George. We'll fight Elon Musk. No, we let's get within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are which?
Yeah, absolutely, positively nuts they are. This is the face of the Democrat Party. And again, they can't tell you, we got to keep the Department of Education. Whose side are you on? We'll fight from dusk to dawn. With the Department of Education, we've gone number 40 nationally when it comes to testing and progress of students. We've got third world banana republics that have kids that perform better than our kids in public school. And yet you got these jackwagon people out there saying, whose side are you on? Well, I'm on the side of the kids. Thanks for asking. I'm on the side of the kids. Whose side am I on? I'm on the side of Americans that might could use the help of FEMA, not illegal aliens. If these jackasses want to ask me whose side am I on, I'll tell you whose side I'm on. I'm on helping us folks here in America to the best of our ability and making sure that rather than paying for transgender education in I think was it Portugal? Rather than all that stuff that we've been covering, how about we get proper health care for veterans that are freezing on the streets right now? So for you Democrats out there that think this is a good look, it's not a good look. It's a sad look, and it's kind of disgusting, and it's weird. Out there singing like that, and Maxine Waters freaking out. One side of me, it makes me laugh. On the other side, it's kind of sad to think that these people actually exist and are so intellectually bankrupt. All right, I'll come back. Keep those comments coming. We'll keep putting them on the screen here. But for the sake of time, and he's got other things to do, you ready for this? It's Jay Ratliff, our aviation and travel expert. He's joined me for many years on the terrestrial radio signal, but this is Lakey Unleashed. I've been unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. And Jay Ratliff, our aviation and travel expert, has decided that he would be a part of the program today via the telephone. Jay Ratliff, good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, pleasant good morning. Doing very well.
Well, I appreciate it. Cold weather. Let's just start with that. I've still got snow on the road out in front of my house this morning, it looked like. And I know yesterday the Denver International Airport was a real big mess. What's it look like around the country? We had a deep freeze going on.
You know, we have some morning de-icing delays around the country that are slowing us down a bit. That's expected. And we had some morning issues in New York. They've kind of moved on. Morning issues in Atlanta and Charlotte. Those have also moved on. Boston's getting hammered. The West Coast is getting hammered. But pretty much other than that, everything in the middle is back to operating pretty much as scheduled at typical winter operations. Airlines around the country are used to this. They're prepared for it. And they're dispatching most of the flights right on time today.
Jay Ratliff, my guest, aviation travel expert. If you're just listening to the audio portion, that's the voice you hear. Jay, let's dive into this thing. We have a new some good things happening in Washington, D.C., but something that caught my eye, I knew it'd catch yours as well, is now that we have a new president, new transportation policies being sought by the airline, and the airlines have stepped in and asked the president and his Department of Transportation to abandon the passenger compensation review that was put in place by the Biden administration.
Yeah, this is something that, to be honest with you, my friend, I was expecting. I was hoping I would be wrong on it. But when President Trump was elected, you and I talked about stocks, how the airline stocks went up. And I stated the thought process was, hey, this is a Trump administration. Trump 1 was very, very friendly to the airline industry. And there was less government oversight, even accountability. You've heard me say many times that I really appreciate the job that the Biden administration did on trying to hold the airlines accountable, forcing them into some customer service type things. And one of the latest that they did was they were coming up with something through the Department of Transportation where airlines were going to be fined and penalized for delayed flights. Now, not weather delays, but just delayed flights. In other words, if an airline is mechanical situation, late arriving crew, something that delays me 3 hours, I, as the passenger, could be accommodated up to $300. If it's a 6-hour delay, up to $500. If it's a 9-hour delay, $700 or more. It's similar to what we see in Europe and Canada. Well, now that Trump's in office, we have the airline lobbying group for the airlines coming to Washington, D.C. saying, let's just kind of abandon this. Let's push it off to the side. Let's push it to some committee for discussion, whatever it is. It's not really needed. And it's going to force us to do things we normally wouldn't do. And that's going to be bad for the consumer. No, it's not going to be bad for the consumer anytime we hold airlines accountable. And since you and I also talked about how airlines contributed, like a United and Delta, $1 million to the Trump inaugural fund, as did Boeing and others, the thought process is, and certainly the perception is, that here you go, here's some money, think fondly of us. Let's not have all this stuff we've had in the past. And we'll have to wait and see. If it's consistent with the Trump first administration, airlines are going to be allowed to slide. If the president says, nope, I'm going to continue doing what the Biden administration did, which is doubtful, I'm going to continue to hold you accountable more so than ever before, that would be thrilling. I just don't think it's going to happen.
It's going to be interesting, and we can say what we want about the Biden administration and Pete Buttigieg, but I'm telling you, you and I did talk about they did in many ways tell the airlines we're not taking smack off of you in consumer protection. Give credit where credit is due.
Well, look, for the first 2 years, Pete was a waste of time. I mean, he was a joke, and something happened. I don't know what, switch got flipped, but the last 2 years, the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg and others, it was like, look, we're going to do what we can to make sure that if airline schedule has a schedule that they can't possibly keep current, we're going to fine them. Ask JetBlue. They got fined $3 or $4 million because they had a schedule that had chronically late flights, meaning that there's no way when they rolled that schedule out, they knew there's no way we can operate this schedule as it is. So there's going to be delays, and they're incredibly chronically delayed. And that's when the Department of Transportation stepped in at the administration's urging to find JetBlue, saying, look, you're offering something to the traveling public that you can't possibly deliver. So because of that, we're going to fine you X amount of dollars. You're going to have to fix it. I love that, because far too long airlines have been able to treat us like garbage, and we just keep coming back. It was earlier in the week, airlineratings.com came out with a list of the top 25 full-service airlines in the world. And on that top 25, not a single U.S. carrier was listed. Not one. Because we suck when it comes to airline customer service. And when you put us up next to the world's airlines, not a single airline will ever, well, I shouldn't say ever, will rarely make the list of the top 20 or 25. And when they looked at low-cost carriers at airlineratings.com, looked at service, seat size, distance between rows, customer service kind of things, of the top 20 low-cost carriers, Southwest came in 10th, and Breeze, surprisingly, took 9th. So out of 45 different spots, U.S. carriers took 2.
Wow.
And that's really embarrassing. But it's certainly reflective of what you and I have to do. We endure travel. We no longer enjoy it.
It's so interesting. We sit here in America thinking we're the greatest nation on the planet. It is in many senses, but it ties into right now. We started the Department of Education, let a bureaucracy get involved, and now we're 40th in the world when it comes to education. You think we should be number one.
Absolutely.
You think we should be the best in air travel, and yet we're not. And it just kind of goes that we have let mediocrity seep into so many areas of our lives and industry, and maybe I hope it gets better, especially
from a safety standpoint. You and I've talked about it. Nobody does it better than the United States. Our safety record, even with the 2 recent accidents that we've had, is so far, it's light years beyond any other part of the world. We lead the world in aviation safety, and that's good. And we can always do better, and we should. But when it comes to airlines pivoting from profit to taking care of the consumer, there's no incentive for them to do it. If I own an airline and I get 80-90% load factors, and I'm making like Delta and United billions of dollars a year, even after I treat customers like crap, there's no incentive for me as an airline to change what I do. Yeah. Now, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Delta Airlines is going to give their employees, because they had a really good year last year, $1.4 billion in profit sharing. And that's like 5-week paycheck for each employee. They're going to be in a really good mood. If you're flying Delta tomorrow, you'll be able to tell. But why can't we have that kind of obsession with taking better care of the consumer? And, when airlines fell in love with technology back in the 90s, 2000s, everything pivoted from customer service to what can we do to make profit. They got rid of the reservation centers. We have to do it on our own. We have to check ourselves in. We have to do that on our own. We have the now paperless boarding system that is on our phone. Everything that we can do to help airlines save more money at our expense And in return, we're still treated like garbage. And that's why I appreciated the Biden administration. The only thing I appreciated about the Biden administration was how they went after airlines. And I really appreciated it. And because finally, for the first time in like forever, we had that. And look, when Jimmy Carter passed, one of the things I appreciated from him, his administration gave us deregulated airlines where the low-cost carriers could come in for the first time ever and actually compete, driving down the low prices, which of course, obviously for us as consumers has been a great thing ever since. But I don't know. I just, the arrogance that airlines have these days just continues to infuriate me because they've been doing this for so long. They continue to give it to us, and there's very little pushback. That's why I tell consumers, if you are flying and have a complaint, do not complain to the airline. Go to dot.gov. That's the Department of Transportation, dot.gov. And in the search box in the corner, just type in airline complaint. A very simple, easy to use form pops up that allows you to complain or issue your complaint through the DOT. They go to the airline. And even though the airlines can ignore us, and they do all the time on complaints, they will not ignore the Department of Transportation. The DOT will send a email to the airline saying, here's a complaint. You have this many days to respond. Copy us in so we can see what you're going to do. Game changer. Do not waste your time complaining to the airlines, dot.gov.
Dot.gov. I know you got to run, Jay, real quick. Have you seen me the story? Man sentenced to prison for laser attacks on plane. We keep hearing sometimes we put these laser pointers on planes, and it's a dangerous situation. They finally caught somebody.
Well, they did. We've had 13,304 laser strikes in 2023. The number continues to escalate. These handheld lasers that some people, for whatever reason, they want to point them at airplanes that are at the critical moment of flight, normally at night as an airplane's taking off and landing. When those things hit the cockpit ceiling from the ground, it illuminates the cockpit in a bright green light that temporarily blinds the flight crew as they're preparing to land. It's ridiculous. Finally, they caught somebody, they're 32-year-old outside of Kalispell, Montana, and they are going to, he was sentenced, I think, to 2.5 years in prison. And I'm glad. I just wish we could catch more people like that. Hey, I wanted to leave you with one other bit of good news, if I may.
Go ahead.
The Federal Aviation Administration, 2021, about 4 years ago, they had a language summit because they wanted to have this idea. They wanted to share recommendations and promote the use of inclusive language. That's when you and I talked so many years ago about how they had to get rid of the notice to airmen. It's a NOTAM that's used in aviation anytime dispatches have to be shared with crew members. They said notice to airmen sounds masculine. So we need to change it to notice to air missions. They got rid of cockpit. They no longer could say airman. Unmanned aviation was considered bad. Man-made had to be replaced with machine-made. They spent millions of dollars at the FAA changing everything to make the language more inclusive. Well, Donald Trump arrives and he goes, nah, baby, nah. That ends today. They've now gone back to the same verbiage we've been using for 70, 80 years. So if you want to call the flight deck a cockpit, you can without feeling bad about it. And even the pilots, the men and women back in 2021 told the FAA, stop spending tens of millions of dollars on this. Yeah. Use that money to upgrade the system that we have, which is so in desperate and dire need of being upgraded. But a little bit more common sense trickles into the FAA, and I'm very, very glad to see it.
Jay Ratliff, your website, jratliff.com, jratliff.com. God bless you, my friend. Thank you. Ratliff. When you go to his website and have a travel question, he's also a prolific day trader and teaches that. You can learn more about that at jratliff.com, jratliff.com. All right, good to have you here on the program. Jimmy is my name, and I want to play for you. You guys know I have another producer, Chad, and I both have another podcast. It's free, and it's called the Critical Mission Podcast. And it was an inspiration. Everybody wanted me to do a podcast. People said, well, let's do a podcast together. And I probably don't give it enough attention. I probably need to get back focused on a little bit more is what I need to do. But it was inspired by the phrase, the two most important days of a person's life, the day they're born, the day they figure out why. You can find this out on YouTube. You can find it on all the live stream podcast platforms. It's out there. And a couple of weeks ago, I sat with another friend who's been on the program. He has an organization organization called Sober AF Entertainment. And he used to talk about events that they did, sober events that they do, providing sober atmospheres at concerts and things. And we dropped an episode of a really turned out to be a fantastic interview, and you got to go watch it. It's free. It's called, you can find it linked up at mymissioniscritical.com, the Critical Mission podcast. It's the latest episode. It dropped last week with my friend Duke Rumley from Sober AF Entertainment. And I want you to watch this snippet of it. This is Duke and I sitting in the podcast studio, and we were sitting there, and let me put this, there's two keys of it. It's called "I Woke Up in a Mexican Prison." That's the name. That's the name of this episode, because he woke up in a Mexican prison, not for one night, but he'll tell the story. I'm not gonna spoil it here, but also he'll talk about the Grateful Dead. So it's called "I Woke Up in a Mexican Prison," and he is also a Grateful Dead. And one day he woke up on a 737. It's some fascinating stories, but here's a snippet of the most recent podcast from My Critical Mission. Go subscribe to it, like it, share it. And then again, the two most important days of a person's life: the day you're born, the day they figure out why. Here we go. Duke Rumley, My Critical Mission podcast.
The thing about Tucson is Nogales, Mexico is about 40 minutes away, and there's no ID needed. 25-cent Corona and 25-cent tequila. So, and so we go down there, we go to this one bar that I like, have a bunch of tequila, go to a couple of the bars. I brown out. I don't remember the rest of the night until we're walking back to the car to go to the US side. And I remember elbowing my buddy. I'm like, hey, let's just stop off at my favorite bar. And we walk in there, and the federales are waiting for us, and they start taking my buddy's money and smearing it on the counter after they dip it in beer. And I think this is hilarious, right? And it turns out he had some fake $20 bills that he didn't tell me about. And but during the night, somebody else had figured out what was going on, but I was in a blackout, so I didn't pick up on this. So
the federales were waiting because the two gringos have some counterfeit money. They're waiting for you in the bar, going, okay, here, going to pass them more.
They didn't think we were dumb enough to come back to that bar.
Okay,
right, but we did. Then we are taken to jail. So
how long were you in the jail?
So I get thrown in jail Friday night. Saturday, that's when I find out it's not drunk and disorderly, it's counterfeiting. I had yelled at my buddy so much they put him in a different cell. I'm expecting like the A-team to show up at any time, right? This is how I was going to bust this out. Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, finally the U.S. consulate calls. And they're like, hey, do you mind if we tell anyone you're in jail? And I'm like, tell the A-team, tell anyone, like get us out of here. And then on Monday, mom flies down. So in Nogales, you're guilty till bribed innocent. So she's got to fly down Monday, Tuesday. They've got some lawyers talking back and forth. By Wednesday, she find out it's going to be $25,000. And this is 1988.
Wow.
So mom, to her credit.
You've been in jail Friday, and now it's the following Wednesday.
Correct.
Thought you were drunk and disorderly, found out your buddy was passing counterfeit bills, therefore you're with him.
Right.
And now it's Wednesday, and she's got to pay the bill to get you out, to back across the border. And mama finds out it's $25,000 in 1988.
Right. And mom says, I've got 4 more at home. Good luck with this one. And mom walks.
Oh, wow.
So 2 days later, they're like, how does 4,000 sound? So that's my trade-in value.
$4,000.
So if I got drunk, she could take me back and get the $4,000 back.
That's the My Mission is Critical. That's the story of the Mexican prison. There's so many great stories on there. It's you're gonna go. We'll find that you got to go listen. It's free. I'm not charging for this at all. This is content that it's entertainment value, but hopefully it's inspirational because Duke has started a fantastic organization that really tries to help people learn. Because that was his big fear in life, that people would not be able to have fun. He thought you could only have fun when you're drinking and drunk, and it led to some real problems with him. And he tells this whole story. This was back when he was 18, 19, 20, 21. So go watch it. It's mymissioniscritical.com. Some of you already subscribed to it. On the platforms that you're on, if you listen to the Apple Podcast or the iHeartRadio, we're on there. Just search my name, Jimmy Lakey, and then subscribe. And that way, when we drop one of these episodes, you just get a notification in the inbox, and boom, there it is. All right. Good to have you here. We're on the home stretch here, but I want to keep going for just a couple of seconds. We started this conversation earlier. Question of the day: men, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And ladies, what do you want? And it seems like right now all the men pretty much want whiskey, cigars, and a steak. That seems to be, in other words, men want gout. Men are looking for gout for Valentine's Day, and women are looking for. The ladies have said one said a home cooked meal would be good. Flowers are always good. Anyway, I told my Valentine's story. Somebody messaged me on my phone a minute ago. Said, "Is that really true?" No, that's true story. But in my dating career, that I didn't know that I was. I thought Valentine's was always on a Tuesday. Yeah, the person I was dating did not appreciate that I skipped Valentine's on the Sunday before because I was waiting until Tuesday. But I had flowers, I had candy and stuff like that. So anyway, all right, let me play this again. This is, again, the face of the current Democrat Party. And I just find this to be quite interesting that, hey, Dems, keep your best coming. Just keep it coming. Keep it on coming right here. Keep it coming. You're sending this lady out, Skeletor every day. Yeah, that's what wigs and jewelry can do. You're sending her out every day. You're sending Elizabeth Warren out every day. You're sending Chuck Schumer out every day. I think it's fantastic. Keep sending these people out. And a matter of fact, keep appearing at rallies like this. This is the government union singing what somebody said sounds like a slave song. Maybe they're picking blueberries. I don't know. Here we go. This is, again, Democrats, keep this up. This is fantastic. You're proving you haven't learned a dang thing about kind of what mainstream and Main Street in America thinks.
Which side are you on? Which side are you
trying to get the harmony going there.
We'll fight against George. We'll fight Elon Musk. No, we must get within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on?
Drinking song. It makes me want to drink.
Which side are you on? Tell me. Which side? Which?
These ladies and men are not in the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir that opens up the show every day. Let me ask, here's a question I was thinking. I've been to a couple of protests for Republicans or pro-life, and we don't make up songs that I can remember. I mean, maybe we say, hey, ho, ho, Dr. Fauci's got to. I don't, do we ever, somebody says use auto-tune. That would be good. I'm trying to think of all of some of you maybe are more, we don't protest like this. Republicans and conservatives don't really protest like this. I mean, I've been at rallies where they sing Amazing Grace. God Bless America. I mean, I don't remember us trying to make up battle chants, battle cries. You know, if they really want a war cry, they got to get Pocahontas there. Pocahontas, she'd probably know how to do a war cry. She'd go on the warpath with them. She could probably sing some of her songs from the, from her Native American heritage. Pocahontas probably got some battle cries and some hexes and stuff she could put on people. So anyway, just keep that going on. I like the no-nonsense attitude. I told you. By the way, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been confirmed as the Health and Human Services Secretary. Hallelujah. That's one of the big ones there. That's the one that I really wanted to see. Make America healthy. Mitch McConnell, the turtle, is the lone GOP senator to vote against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And whether Mitch McConnell knows he voted no, it's kind of like whether Joe Biden knows he pooped his pants. You just never know what Mitch McConnell knows. But we also know that Mitch McConnell is a swamp rat and bought and paid for by pharmaceutical companies. By the way, we got to get into this. This is something Elon Musk mentioned. Nancy Pelosi has an annual salary of $223,000, and yet her net worth has grown to $202 million. Mitch McConnell, the old swamp creature or turtle that he is, swamp turtle. He's not a swamp creature. He's a swamp turtle. He has a salary of $200,000 a year, and yet his net worth is now $95 million. That's his net worth. Now, his wife, her family's involved with the Chinese shipping company, and that's why they call him Cocaine Mitch, because that's a whole different story on that side. But his net worth is $95 million. Chuck Schumer makes an annual salary of $210,000, and his net worth is $75 million. Elizabeth Warren has a net worth of her actual salary is $285,000. I don't know what she's making money off of, a little bit higher, but her net worth is $67 million. Now, if you start searching around, they say, oh, well, they got publishing deals. Listen, the way publishing deals work anymore is you're not getting those grand advances because nobody's buying an Elizabeth Warren book. Not a damn person in America is going to buy an Elizabeth Warren book. Nobody cares what she has to say. She's an idiot. And so the reason, it's just fascinating to see that their net worth is up there. And they'll always say, well, we have investments. Yeah, really? That's what Elon Musk said. We should investigate some of these high net worth individuals that are becoming higher and higher and higher every year, and they're making $200,000 a year. It's a fascinating world. Let me play this. I like the no nonsense method. I like Elon Musk coming out there and busting in the chops. Here's why. Keep hearing the word kickbacks. One of the reasons they're squawking so much about the squawking so much about Doge is because this has been a gravy train. This has been a gravy train. There has been laundering. There have been kickbacks. And I hope to goodness, the only way you're ever going to squelch this is if Pam Bondi can get the information from Elon Musk and these Doge, and they need to find out who was complicit and who was just careless and who was criminal. And if you're just careless, fine, get another job and get the heck out of the government sector. You're an idiot. But who out there was really getting the kickbacks here? And I think there's got to be some investigation. And even the members of Congress, they're a corrupt bunch up there as well, as they have grown exponentially in their assets and their value. And you think, man, $200,000 a year, and you have $95 million of net worth. And that's why Mitch McConnell doesn't care when you call his office and tell him to vote for RFK Jr. He votes against RFK Jr. because someone else that paid more money for access is the guy that buys that vote. Again, we've said it before, if they could just have to wear the patches like a NASCAR driver or a pilot's jacket with all their accolades, it would be very interesting to tell. I do like it. It's no nonsense, though. We're getting a no-nonsense attitude. We got no nonsense with Putin and no nonsense with Zelensky. We're solving the war. We're starting to meet Friday, and they say, yes, sir, Mr. Trump, give us our damn hostages back. Yes. I mean, we're just not playing games anymore. Pam Bondi claws back, Secretary of Homeland Security claws back and say, hey, we had this swamp monster that we should prosecute, give you money in New York for luxury hotels for illegals, claw it back. And she got all the money back. She tweeted this last night. So she got all that money back. And this is Tom Homan. Did you hear that the Pope, I'm not Catholic, and so I want to be very respectful of those who are Catholic, but some of my Catholic friends say he's not my Pope. I don't know how that whole thing works in the Catholic Church, but this is Tom Homan, because the Pope comes out and says how bad it is that we're deporting all these people, how awful it is that we're sending criminals out of our country, rapists, murderers, gang members, people that are involved in child trafficking, we're kicking them out. And the Pope evidently came out and said something papal, and I'm a man of respect, so I'm not going to say what I would like to say to him, but here's what Tom Homan said, and evidently Tom Homan is Catholic. And so if you're Catholic, I guess you can criticize the Pope more readily. You know, it's like talking about someone. I can talk bad. You can talk bad about your mother, but I shouldn't talk bad about your mother. Right, something like that. All right, Tom Homan, watch this. No nonsense. No holds barred. Bare knuckled. Go.
Harsh words for the... I got harsh words for the Pope. Pope want to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this is a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was the first communion as a Catholic, confirmation as a Catholic. You ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
Tom Homan says, hey, fix the Catholic Church. And by the way, why are you criticizing us, Pope Francis? You have a wall around the Vatican to protect your ass. You've got a wall around your offices and to protect you and your people. So why are you criticizing America that we want to keep our people safe? Again, hypocrisy from the Catholic Church. Very sad. And good for Tom Homan. They're not taking this crap anymore. We've been pushed around. Go back to the Jordan Goudreau interview we did earlier, that you didn't realize how much China was infiltrating Central and South America. And the Greenland thing, the Panama Canal thing, all of that came, and Jordan Goudreau put it in great perspective. All that came because we had swayed away from the Monroe Doctrine, who said this is our hemisphere, don't F with it. And they've been effing with it. And Donald Trump says, F around and find out. And that's what all this is. This is Tom Homan saying we're not going to take lecture from the Pope that is a hypocrite and has got a lot of problems on his own back porch that he hasn't fixed. He ought to sweep that off before he gets on our back porch. And by the way, Pope Francis, could we send these illegal Venezuelan gang members to you? Would you let them nudge up with you? You know, I'm just thinking that would be a great opportunity. Next time we have a bunch of gangbangers, a bunch of rapists and child traffickers and people that are wanted by the international police, we ought to call Pope Francis and say, hey, Popey, we're landing. We got him in Italy. We're in Italian airspace. We're going to land here, and we're going to crash through the Vatican doors, and you can take them. You take them, Pope Francis. And if you're not going to take them, shut your freaking pie hole and fix your own damn problems that you have in your own damn corrupt institution. There, I wasn't going to get worked up all day, and I just got worked up today. Oh, now I broke my vow to not get worked up today. All right, there's so many things to get to. We're still behind, but we're going to wrap it up here for this glorious day the Lord has made. But I got to tell you a couple of things before I do. First of all, final swap of the question of the day is here. If you want to do the question of the day right now, you got to do the question of the day. What is it that you want for Valentine's Day as a man? What is it that you want for a woman? We're going to get a few more of these comments up there. I promise you we shall. Yesterday, I was talking to Buddy, and he had a water pipe or something busted in his house, and all hell broke loose. His hot water heater broke in his basement, and he's like, what do I do? I got to run home and handle this stuff, ripping up carpets and get repairman. I said, do you need a plumber? And he said, you got a plumber? And I said, yes. And I texted my friend Corey Clinton. I said, hey, Corey, I talk about 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, 1hourheatandair.com. Corey's also got Mr. Sparky Electric and also Benjamin Franklin Plumbing. And so I texted Corey and said, hey, who does my guy call? And he says, I'll have my manager of Benjamin Franklin call you. And within 2 minutes, I mean, this all happened. They're calling me saying, it's like 7 o'clock at night. And how can we help you? And I said, well, I think it's an emergency. And then I messaged my friend, his name is Paul. And I said, do you need him now? He says, yes. And so I messaged back. Within like 5 minutes, the dispatch for Benjamin Franklin Plumbing was on the phone to my friend Paul. And I'll get the results of that all today. But listen, 1hourheatandair.com, it's not just taking care of your HVAC systems at your home in Colorado. It's also taking care of your plumbing. It's also taking care of your electric. I've used all these people in my house. And as you can see, in a moment of crisis, I go to my friends and I'm like, I got a guy for you. I got a guy for you. And I've told so many people. I've had a guy one time that had his HVAC worked on at home, and he didn't take my advice. And then later on, he said, man, I should listen to you because I got screwed by you. Yeah, I know you would. Honesty, integrity, warranties, they're top-notch. They're fantastic. And Corey Clinton, anywhere under the sound of my dulcet tones in Colorado, now that's 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey, 855-1-HOUR. Again, plumbing, electric, HVAC. They can take care of all of the 3 different companies, but all under the great leadership of Corey Clinton. 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey. Your furnace is going out. You're freezing your butt off. 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey. But on that same page, you can reach out to him, 855-1-HOUR, and talk to him about Mr. Sparky or talk about electric, or reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with everybody. Because they take care of it. They've been supportive of the program for a long, long time, and I really appreciate it. And you can see, I don't talk the talk, I walk the walk. When my friends are in need, I say, don't call that thing that you saw. Stop. Talk to Corey Clinton. 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right. Can I play one more video? Everybody's like, we're going to be working overtime. I want to play one more video. This is fantastical. And we're going to wrap it up. We talk about Super Bowl this week. The Super Bowl this week. Maybe we'll wait this tomorrow. I have a little mini documentary. It's too long. I have this mini documentary that it's about Michael Jackson and the Super Bowl. I think you'll find it in there. It's like, when I say mini documentary, it's like a reel. It's like 2 minutes. But it really fascinating because we talk about this Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl, and then we talk about the jetpack and the dancing reindeer girls. If you watch the show every day, you know what I'm talking about, how the Super Bowl has evolved over history. Michael Jackson was the guy that really put that Super Bowl halftime show on the mark. And on that, tomorrow I'm going to play that. Matter of fact, let me put MJ there. MJ. Okay, we're going to do that. All right. I do want to remind you, go Patreon. This interview hit today, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. You got to get
non-human biologics that were recovered
L.A.
from these
Marzulli
crash sites. And yet, my phone doesn't ring. I get a few emails. I mean, what do you have to do, before people really start to wake up? And that's full disclosure.
Yeah, he wants full disclosure about aliens, and it is a fascinating interview, about an hour, and you should go listen to that thing. It's a fantastic $9.95 a month, but there's a 7-day free trial. It's up now. It dropped this morning. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Want to give one more quick word of thanks to, first of all of you who tune in here every day and keep spreading the word. Rumble, good morning. YouTube, good morning. We've survived YouTube now, I think 1 week. We're 1 week back on YouTube from our spanking that we got, a Heine swat we got. and all the platforms out there. I really appreciate all of you tuning in. And I appreciate our great sponsors. Support them. If you've been thinking about selling a home, maybe you're just trying to develop your strategy. Maybe it's not like you're going to sell it tomorrow, but you want a strategy moving forward. I want you to go to a website called homeswithsherry.com. It's my dear friend, Sherry Cree. And she wants to help you come up with that strategy. As a matter of fact, a free consultation, I call it a strategy session, in which you kind of talk about your real estate dreams, your goals, and maybe you're wondering if it's a good market. I mean, maybe you're not urgently needing to move, but you're just thinking, could I parlay this into, listen, she'll help you talk about how to parlay the real estate transaction at the right time, the right place, the right price, and the right moment. And can you parlay that into something that down the road becomes generational wealth? See, sometimes we think, I've just got to move. I'm going to downsize. I'm going to upsize. But sometimes you need to back up and have more strategy to that and say, what if I did it this way and that way and not this way? Put another set of eyes, a strategy session about your real estate dreams, your real estate goals. Maybe some of you have been wanting to get into rental property. Talk about generational wealth. Maybe you need to downsize. Maybe you want to know what the best month is. Maybe you kind of got a tight schedule. You've got a tight schedule going on out there. Whatever the case may be, you've got to reach out to Sherry Cree. Again, whether you're in Fort Collins, whether you're in Denver, whether you're in Boulder, again, Colorado centric. I know if you're a realtor out of the state of Colorado, we'd love to help you out as well. But again, wherever you're at, reach out to her. It's a free consultation. homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. All right, Scott says, my fellow rumblers, have a great day. Scott, hope you have a great day as well. Somebody says, my dad always said there's a difference between Catholics and Roman Catholics are like candles and Roman candles. Said all Roman Catholics are Catholic, but not all Catholics are Roman Catholic. Good for a homan. See, I see, that's why I reserve criticism, because I don't understand the whole thing. I'm not a Catholic. So anyway, you guys can criticize and say, but anyway, good for Holman. I agree. Good for Tom Holman. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't donated to my charity, you should. We're getting close to the 15th of the month. Some of you get paid on the 15th. Go ahead and set that payment up. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. $30 feeds a kid's for $30 feeds a child for a month. 2 meals a day. $30 feeds a child. If you want to add education to those 2 meals a day, it's $65. You can even go to the website and pick out a child. That would be fantastic as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, riverspromise.org. Go to the Patreon page and subscribe. And I'll tease you another thing on the Patreon page. Just about a half hour from now, I'm going to sit back out of the studio and do a fantastic interview with somebody who just wrote I wouldn't say a tell-all book, but a very interesting history book about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's coming soon to the Patreon page. I'm going to conduct that interview here in just a few minutes. Until we meet again tomorrow morning, please spread the word. Thanks to everybody been a part of the program. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Spread the word. Tell everybody that we're here every day. And if you want to advertise, again, help keep us free. info@jimmylakey.com, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Until we meet tomorrow morning, good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. I mean this. May God bless you. God bless America. We have to do the meme roulette tomorrow. I got to talking. Yeah, we'll see. There may be some memes on the screen, though. You don't go anywhere. We'll cover them live tomorrow.